Welcome. Today we will be delving into the story of Onan, Jacob's legacy, and Judah's role. For more in-depth studies on biblical concepts like why God killed Onan and more biblical facts, subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell so you will never miss an update on deepening your faith and knowledge. And Jacob dwelled in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. Genesis 37:1. In the rugged hills and fertile plains of ancient Canaan, the sons of Jacob were growing, each playing a role in the forming tribes of Israel. Canaan, though home to various peoples and traditions, was a place of covenant promise, one where Jacob, renamed Israel, would see his descendants flourish. Judah, Jacob's fourth son, was known for his strength, loyalty, and leadership, traits that would define his lineage. Unlike his brothers, Judah's journey would lead him to Canaanite territory, where cultural exchanges were unavoidable, influencing his family in profound ways. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. Genesis 49:10. Judah was destined for greatness. Jacob, his father, had prophesied that Judah's lineage would hold a scepter, a symbol of authority and kingship that pointed to a future line of leaders. This promise placed an invisible weight on Judah, who knew his actions would set a standard for his descendants. The legacy Jacob envisioned was a sacred one deeply tied to obedience, honor, and family unity, creating a blueprint for Judah's life and expectations for his sons, including Onan. Judah eventually separated from his family, settling among the Canaanites, where he met Shua, a Canaanite woman. Against his family's tradition, Judah married her, blending his lineage with that of the Canaanite culture. This union introduced new customs and perspectives into Judah's household. Although Jacob's lineage was to remain distinct, Judah's actions were a step toward integrating with surrounding cultures, shaping his children's upbringing in ways Jacob hadn't foreseen. The marriage between Judah and Shua was more than a personal choice. It was a bridge between two cultures. Shua bore Judah 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah. Each boy was a blend of Hebrew and Canaanite blood, growing up under customs that were a mix of both worlds. This cultural blend set a backdrop of complexities, as Hebrew traditions like the Levirate marriage were foreign concepts among Canaanites, yet foundational in Israelite law, creating potential conflicts in the family's future. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. Genesis 38:6. Judah's firstborn, was expected to uphold the family legacy. His second son, Onan, stood as a backup to ensure the continuity of Judah's lineage if anything should happen to The youngest, Shelah, was still growing into his place in the family. Marriage to Tamar, a woman from the region, was meant to solidify the family's future, but this union would soon mark the beginning of a series of tragic choices and divine judgments. Tamar, though introduced to Judah's family as a wife to was bound by Hebrew customs. When died prematurely, leaving Tamar childless, the concept of Levirate marriage emerged. The law was clear. If a man died without an heir, his brother was to marry the widow to preserve the family line. Deuteronomy 25:5-6. Yet, as a Canaanite woman, Tamar wasn't fully integrated into Hebrew practices, and Onan's reluctance reflected the cultural tension within Judah's family. Judah understood the duty of family honor and inheritance. He knew the importance of producing heirs, especially given Jacob's blessing over his line. Judah reminded Onan of this duty, encouraging him to marry Tamar and produce an heir for But Onan's heart was conflicted. This Levirate marriage would mean any son born would carry his brother's name and inheritance, not his own, creating resentment and an unwillingness to comply fully with Judah's wishes. Genesis 1:28, be fruitful and multiply. In the ancient world, lineage and legacy were everything. Judah's expectations weren't merely for family pride. They were divinely rooted. Onan knew the value placed on descendants, but his priorities clashed with the higher call of family duty. The bond of marriage was sacred, and producing an heir for was an act of loyalty and obedience to both God and family. Yet, Onan's selfishness began to cloud his judgment, setting the stage for a fateful choice. As the firstborn, was expected to carry Judah's legacy forward. However, heart was drawn to actions that displeased the Lord, leading to his untimely death. The Bible doesn't specify Er's sins, but his death served as a solemn reminder of the importance of righteous living. Onan's own role shifted with Er's passing. He was no longer simply the second son, but was now responsible for carrying the family forward by honoring his brother's memory through Tamar. Tamar's marriage to positioned her as a pivotal figure within Judah's family. As the wife of the eldest son, her role was to ensure the continuation of Judah's line. Following Er's death, however, her future became uncertain. In Hebrew culture, a widow without children faced great vulnerability, as her status and security depended on her ability to bear heirs. This law of levirate marriage, Genesis 38:8, intended to protect women like Tamar, but for Onan it represented a burden rather than an obligation. Genesis 38:7. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Er's death was sudden and shocking, a grim reminder of the divine justice that was ever present in ancient Israel's beliefs. The scriptures say that was wicked in God's sight, though no specific sin is recorded. This silence surrounding Er's wrongdoing leaves an air of mystery, compelling readers to consider the weight of sin and God's intimate knowledge of human hearts. For Judah, losing his firstborn was a devastating blow, one that carried both emotional and cultural consequences. As Judah mourned, he knew the family's duty to was far from over. The continuity of his lineage demanded an heir, which meant that his next son, Onan, would be called to step into a role he may not have desired. Genesis 38:8. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go in to your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother." After Er's death, Judah reminded Onan of the cultural law that dictated his next steps. Instructing him to take Tamar as his wife, Judah emphasized that Onan was to fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law. The levirate law was clear and rooted in compassion, designed to honor the memory of the deceased and ensure the widow's security. This expectation wasn't simply a familial obligation, it was a holy act, one that upheld God's command to be fruitful and ensure a legacy. Onan understood what was required, yet within him stirred a reluctance, a desire to evade this duty, as it would mean producing an heir not for himself, but for his deceased brother. The levirate marriage, an ancient tradition found in the law of Moses, was a profound cultural practice designed to preserve family names and protect widows. In Hebrew tradition, if a man died without children, his brother was responsible for marrying the widow to produce offspring in the deceased's name. This practice, later detailed in Deuteronomy 25:5-6, upheld both family honor and the deceased's legacy. For Onan, though, the concept conflicted with personal desires. He was to raise a child that would inherit Er's portion, a child who would carry forward his brother's name. The weight of this responsibility, mixed with his own reluctance, set the stage for a decision that would change the course of his life. Onan's heart was filled with hesitation. Taking Tamar as a wife was not an easy choice, as he struggled with resentment and fear. What would it mean for his own inheritance if Tamar bore a child in Er's name? The birthright of the firstborn was significant in Israelite tradition, conferring not only material wealth but also a place of honor within the tribe. In Onan's mind, Er's death might have seemed an opportunity for him to take on this role. Yet, as he considered his father's command, he found himself torn between obedience to family duty and his desire to protect his own interests. Judah, as a father, was both firm and compassionate. Having lived through his own trials and tribulations, he understood the importance of obedience to God and to family traditions. He called Onan aside, urging him to consider the impact of his choice not only on Tamar but also on their family's future. Judah's words were weighted with sorrow over Er's death and concern for what would come if Onan refused his duty. But in his son, Judah saw a reluctance that reminded him of his own struggles, a reluctance that could lead to greater challenges. Judah's hope was that his words would inspire Onan to honor their heritage, but he knew his influence was limited, as each man's heart was his own. With his father's words still echoing in his mind, Onan resolved to take Tamar as his wife. But in his heart, he harbored intentions that were contrary to the duty he outwardly accepted. While he would fulfill the appearance of obedience, he intended to avoid the responsibility of producing an heir. His motivations were rooted in self-interest, a desire to preserve his own inheritance rather than honor the memory of his brother. Onan's choice was a silent rebellion, one that he believed could go unnoticed. Yet, in a culture that revered family duty as sacred, this hidden act would bear serious consequences. Genesis 38:9. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he went in to his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground, so as not to give offspring to his brother. Onan's rebellion took a hidden form, as he repeatedly practiced coitus interruptus with Tamar. He calculated his every action, hoping to satisfy his family while secretly subverting his duty. The decision to spill his seed on the ground symbolized his refusal to let Er's name continue, a choice that blatantly disregarded the levirate law. Onan believed his defiance would go unnoticed, but this act held serious implications. His choice to forsake his duty to Tamar was more than a personal decision. It was an outright refusal to respect the customs his family held sacred. Onan's actions revealed a complex mixture of motivations. Was his refusal driven by selfishness, or was there an underlying fear of losing his own inheritance? If Tamar bore a son, that child would inherit Er's portion, limiting Onan's share. The struggle within Onan reflected a tension between loyalty and self-preservation, a dilemma that many faced when personal interests conflicted with family obligations. His rationalization allowed him to justify his actions, but his choice came at a cost, as the Lord saw through his intentions and found his actions displeasing. Onan's decision wasn't just a matter of personal choice, it carried moral implications. By refusing to honor his brother's memory, Onan broke the sacred bond of family duty, showing a disregard for both Tamar and the customs upheld by his people. In choosing self-preservation over his obligations, he undermined the values his family stood for. This decision, though hidden from his father and Tamar, would ultimately bring divine judgment. The narrative underscores the importance of integrity, showing that actions hidden from man are never hidden from God, who weighs the heart of every individual. Genesis 38:10. And what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. God's response to Onan's choice was swift and direct. The Lord found his actions wicked, as they represented a complete disregard for the levirate law, a command that carried divine significance. Just as Er's sins had led to his death, Onan's deceit and selfishness drew the same consequence. This act of divine judgment was a clear indication of the importance of family duty and integrity in the eyes of God. For Onan, his life was abruptly cut short, serving as a solemn reminder to future generations that disobedience, even when hidden, would not go unpunished. The news of Onan's sudden death shook Judah's household. Though the scriptures do not describe Judah's reaction, it is likely that grief and confusion filled his heart. The loss of a second son, and in such quick succession, pointed to a grave spiritual issue within the family. Judah was left questioning what had gone wrong, as the deaths of and Onan seemed like divine punishment. The cultural and familial expectations he had held for his sons were shattered, leaving him to ponder what would come next for Tamar and the line of his family. Judah's sorrow was compounded by the cultural implications of Onan's death. In his mind, the continuation of his family line was now threatened. With only Shelah left, Judah feared that his youngest son might meet the same fate as his brothers if he married Tamar. Judah's reaction was a mixture of grief and growing superstition, leading him to hesitate in fulfilling Tamar's rights. This fear of further loss clouded his judgment, introducing a complex layer to the story as Judah began distancing himself from his duties to Tamar. Genesis 38:11. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in thy father's house till Shelah my son be grown." After Onan's death, Tamar's future became uncertain. According to tradition, Shelah should have been the next to fulfill the levirate duty. However, Judah, driven by fear, asked Tamar to return to her father's house, promising that when Shelah was of age, he would fulfill his role. Though outwardly compliant, Tamar recognized Judah's reluctance. She knew her rights and understood that Judah's hesitation might lead to her abandonment. Left in a vulnerable position, Tamar clung to the hope that justice would eventually prevail. In the ancient world, a woman without a male protector, whether a husband, father, or son, was at a disadvantage. The levirate marriage law was intended to shield widows from isolation, providing them with both security and status. Tamar's situation was precarious. Without a husband or son, her place in society was tenuous. Judah's hesitation to marry her to Shelah reflected a breach of cultural expectations, leaving Tamar in a position where she would need to act boldly to secure her future within Judah's family. Judah's decision to withhold Shelah from Tamar exposed a deeper struggle. Though Judah respected his family's traditions, the deaths of and Onan seemed to suggest a curse over Tamar. In his grief, Judah feared that marrying Shelah to Tamar would endanger his only remaining son. Yet, his hesitation led to a breakdown in trust and duty. His dilemma highlighted the tension between fear and faith as he tried to protect Shelah while ignoring the obligations of his heritage and the rights owed to Tamar. Genesis 38:13-14. And when Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep," she removed her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil. Tamar waited in her father's house, honoring Judah's instructions. But time passed, and Shelah was not given to her. She realized that Judah had no intention of fulfilling his promise. Determined to claim her rightful place within the family, Tamar devised a plan. Hearing that Judah would be traveling to Timnah, she set her plan in motion. Tamar's actions were bold, but they reflected her deep understanding of family rights and her unwavering commitment to securing her future. As Shelah grew older, Tamar's suspicions were confirmed. Judah had withheld Shelah from her, breaking the promise he made after Onan's death. Tamar's sense of injustice grew as she realized that Judah's fear had led him to prioritize Shelah's safety over her rightful claim. In a society where lineage and family continuity were paramount, Judah's decision left Tamar in an untenable position. Her desire for justice became her motivation, driving her to act decisively to reclaim her place within Judah's family. Genesis 38:14. She took off her widow's garments and wrapped herself in a veil and sat at the entrance to Enim. Disguising herself, Tamar waited for Judah at the entrance of Enim, a town on the way to Timnah. Tamar's choice to cover herself with a veil was significant. It transformed her identity and allowed her to confront Judah without revealing herself. Her disguise was a calculated move, a means to achieve the justice she felt Judah had denied her. The veil represented both her anonymity and her determination to take control of her destiny in a society that had left her with few options. In ancient times, the veil held powerful symbolism. For Tamar, it provided both protection and empowerment, allowing her to engage with Judah on equal terms. The veil transformed her from a widow, denied her rights, into a mysterious figure, one who could assert her claim without fear of immediate recognition. By veiling herself, Tamar assumed control over her identity, symbolizing her transformation from a passive widow into an active agent of her own fate. The story captures the veil's dual role as a shield and a tool of empowerment in Tamar's quest for justice. Genesis 38:15. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Judah, unaware of Tamar's identity, mistook her for a prostitute. His reaction reveals the complexities of human perception and the unintended consequences of his actions. Judah's decision to engage with this unknown woman underscored the vulnerability and unpredictability of human choices. Tamar, seeing the opportunity to secure what was rightfully hers, played her part carefully. This encounter was not a random act, but a calculated moment in Tamar's journey to restore her place within Judah's family and secure the legacy of her late husband. Tamar's actions were driven by a profound sense of justice. She had waited patiently, respected Judah's promises, and endured rejection. Yet when the opportunity arose, she took matters into her own hands. Judah, unaware of her identity, agreed to give her a pledge, a signet, cord, and staff, as a guarantee of his future payment. These items symbolized Judah's authority and personal identity, effectively placing his honor in Tamar's hands. Tamar's plan required courage, for she risked her reputation to uphold her rights within the family. When Tamar later revealed her identity, presenting Judah's signet, cord, and staff as evidence, Judah was struck by the gravity of his actions. In that moment, Judah recognized the depth of Tamar's loyalty to the family and his own failure to uphold her rights. Tamar's actions, though unconventional, restored her honor, and secured her place within Judah's lineage. Judah's acknowledgement of her righteousness marked a turning point, a moment of humility that redefined his understanding of justice and family loyalty. Genesis 38:26, She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah. Judah's words were a profound confession, an acknowledgement of his failure to honor his commitments. By declaring Tamar more righteous than himself, he admitted his own shortcomings, recognizing the strength of her faithfulness to the family. This moment of humility transformed Judah, marking a shift from fear and hesitation to an acceptance of responsibility. Tamar's resilience and determination served as a mirror, reflecting the values Judah had neglected in his fear of further loss. Tamar's determination was rewarded with the birth of twins, Perez and Zerah. These children secured the continuation of Judah's line and restored Tamar's place within the family. Perez would later become an ancestor of King David, embedding Tamar's actions within the broader tapestry of Israel's history. Through her boldness and perseverance, Tamar became an essential link in the line that would eventually lead to the Messiah, fulfilling the divine promise over Judah's lineage. Tamar's role in the story marked her as a powerful symbol of resilience and faithfulness to family duty. By defying Judah's reluctance, she ensured that Judah's line would continue, fulfilling the ancient Levite obligation. Tamar's boldness wasn't merely about preserving her own status. It was an act that maintained the integrity of the family line, aligning with the biblical tradition that valued legacy and duty. Her place in Judah's family was now secured, not just as a widow, but as a mother of heirs who would carry forward the family name. Onan's refusal to fulfill his levirate duty had nearly jeopardized Judah's line, a line destined to be significant in the history of Israel. Onan's selfishness nearly cut off a branch of Israel's family tree, leaving Judah's heritage vulnerable. Yet through Tamar's determination, the family line was restored. The consequences of Onan's actions serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of self-interest and the importance of duty, showing that personal decisions can have far-reaching effects, not only for oneself, but for future generations. The story of Onan is a strong reminder of divine justice in the Hebrew tradition. The ancient Hebrew family code was rooted in values of loyalty, duty, and legacy. Onan's failure to uphold these values led to his untimely death, illustrating the importance of obedience to divine laws. This outcome reflects the Hebrew belief that God's justice operates within family structures, rewarding those who act with integrity and punishing those who disregard their responsibilities. Through this lens, Onan's fate serves as a reminder of the weight of one's actions in a covenantal relationship with God. The story of Judah, Onan, and Tamar emphasizes the weight of family duty within ancient Israelite culture. The role of a family member was to uphold honor, legacy, and loyalty. Judah's eventual recognition of Tamar's righteousness reflects his acceptance of this duty, even though it required him to confront his own failings. For Judah's line to continue, each family member was expected to contribute to the collective legacy. Tamar's actions, though unconventional, reinforced the importance of loyalty to the family and to God's expectations. Over centuries, the story of Onan has been interpreted in various ways. Historically, his refusal to fulfill his levirate duty has been seen as an act of defiance against family obligations. Jewish tradition often highlights his disregard for family honor, while some interpretations in Christian teachings have focused on the importance of obedience and the consequences of selfish choices. Onan's story invites reflection on the nature of duty, the risks of personal gain over collective good, and the importance of upholding one's commitments to family and faith. Onan's act of spilling his seed on the ground led to centuries of misinterpretation, with the term onanism historically associated with masturbation. However, biblical scholars largely agree that Onan's sin was not about the act itself, but his refusal to provide an heir for his brother. His story underscores the broader principle of responsibility and the importance of upholding familial duties, especially in cultures that valued lineage continuity. Correcting this misinterpretation has allowed modern readers to see Onan's actions as a profound violation of duty, rather than a judgment on personal behavior. The custom of levirate marriage was more than a cultural practice. It was enshrined in Hebrew law as a means to protect family legacy. By requiring a brother to marry his deceased sibling's widow, the law provided security for widows and preserved the family name. This duty reflected a self-sacrificial approach, placing family obligations above personal desires. For Onan, disregarding this duty went against the foundational values of his people, and his story became a warning against prioritizing self-interest over familial responsibility. In Jewish tradition, Onan's story is often viewed through the lens of loyalty and duty to family. His actions serve as an example of what happens when one prioritizes personal gain over collective well-being. Jewish commentaries reflect on Onan's failure to uphold his brother's legacy, a violation that ultimately led to divine retribution. This interpretation reinforces the value placed on family loyalty and the importance of maintaining integrity within one's lineage, making Onan's story a moral lesson for generations. Christian interpretations of Onan's story focus on the themes of obedience and integrity. His choice to disregard his duty reflects a selfishness that stands in contrast to the teachings of Christ, who emphasized self-sacrifice and loyalty. Many Christian scholars view Onan's fate as an illustration of the consequences of ignoring God's laws. His story has been used in moral teachings to encourage believers to place family obligations and divine commandments above personal desires, reinforcing the biblical values of selflessness and duty. Onan's story invites ethical reflections on the nature of selfishness and responsibility. By refusing to uphold his duty, Onan acted out of self-preservation, fearing the implications of raising an heir for his brother. His actions reveal the dangers of prioritizing personal gain over communal obligations. The ethical implications of Onan's choice resonate with readers, encouraging them to consider the importance of selflessness in family roles and the potential harm caused by neglecting responsibilities to others. The story of Onan emphasizes the high value God places on obedience within family relationships. In the biblical narrative, family is a sacred unit designed to reflect divine order and loyalty. Onan's disobedience disrupted this structure, leading to severe consequences. His punishment serves as a reminder that obedience to God's commandments, especially those concerning family, is integral to living a righteous life. By honoring these obligations, individuals uphold a legacy of faithfulness that resonates throughout generations. Cultural expectations played a significant role in Onan's story. As a member of Judah's family, Onan was expected to adhere to the laws and customs of his people. These expectations were not just social constructs, but held spiritual significance. Onan's refusal to fulfill his duty demonstrated a disregard for these norms, disrupting the social and spiritual fabric of his family. His actions serve as a reminder of the strength of cultural traditions in shaping individual choices and the consequences of straying from them. Tamar's story highlights the challenges faced by women in ancient societies. Without a male protector, she was vulnerable and dependent on the family's willingness to uphold her rights. Yet Tamar's resilience and determination allowed her to reclaim her place, even in the face of abandonment. Her actions reflect the strength of women in biblical narratives, who often found ways to secure justice within the confines of their society. In Judah's family, ancestry and legacy were paramount, reflecting the importance of lineage in ancient Hebrew culture. Tamar's determination to bear heirs for her deceased husband illustrated the weight of this value. Judah's line, though nearly disrupted by Onan's actions, was restored through Tamar's resilience. This focus on lineage emphasizes the role of ancestry in shaping identity and belonging within biblical culture. Tamar's success in preserving her family's legacy underscores the significance of lineage in the broader story of Israel. Onan's story, though brief, carries life lessons that continue to influence readers today. His choices offer reflections on the nature of responsibility, the consequences of selfishness, and the value of integrity. In family and community settings, Onan's story serves as a cautionary tale, reminding individuals of the importance of upholding commitments. By prioritizing personal desires over familial duty, Onan's legacy is marked by missed opportunities, teaching us to consider the far-reaching impact of their decisions. Onan's character, though defined by a single choice, invites deeper analysis. Was he simply a selfish man, or did he struggle with fears about his own future? His hesitation may reflect a broader human tendency to prioritize self-interest, especially in difficult situations. By examining his motivations, we gain a better understanding of the complexities of his character, recognizing that his story is not just about sin, but about the challenges of choosing duty over personal desires in times of uncertainty. Onan's choice to prioritize personal gain over his family duty left a lasting mark on Judah's lineage. His story is a reminder that individual choices can ripple through generations, influencing not only immediate family, but also descendants. While Onan's name is associated with disobedience, the story emphasizes the power of redemption within a family. Through Tamar's determination, the line of Judah was preserved, creating a legacy that would impact future generations in Israel. Onan's story serves as a lesson on the long-lasting consequences of disregarding duty. Onan's actions, though disobedient, forced Judah to confront the value of family duty and the weight of his legacy. Through Onan's refusal and Tamar's resilience, Judah ultimately learned the importance of honoring familial promises. This shift in Judah's perspective brought him closer to the values of integrity and accountability. Onan's story, with all its complexities, contributed to a transformation within Judah's family, shaping their understanding of loyalty, obedience, and the divine expectations placed on them as a family chosen by God. Tamar's success in securing her rights posed a cultural challenge, as she took control in a situation where women typically had limited power. Her bold actions defied traditional expectations, positioning her as an unconventional hero in the biblical narrative. Tamar's story is often viewed as a model of courage and perseverance, demonstrating that justice can be achieved even in restrictive circumstances. Her victory reinforced the importance of upholding family integrity, and her determination ensured that her husband's name and Judah's line would not be lost. 1 Samuel 15:22. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. Onan's story underscores the biblical value placed on obedience over personal sacrifice. His failure to fulfill his duty wasn't just a refusal, it was an act of defiance against the sacred laws of family and heritage. In the Hebrew tradition, obedience was a measure of one's faithfulness to God and to family. Onan's story serves as a reminder that even hidden acts have spiritual consequences. Through his failure, viewers are reminded of the importance of faithfulness and the divine expectation to honor family duties with a willing heart. Judah's journey from a father focused on preserving his lineage to one who recognized his own shortcomings is a story of transformation. Onan's death was a wake-up call, leading Judah to reevaluate his choices. Judah's encounter with Tamar highlighted his own failures, and through her resilience, he learned the value of humility and accountability. This transformation set Judah on a path of growth, preparing him to become a leader with deeper wisdom and compassion, qualities that would shape his legacy within the tribes of Israel. The story of Onan holds valuable lessons for modern families, especially in the areas of duty, integrity, and legacy. In today's world, where individual desires often conflict with family obligations, Onan's story serves as a reminder of the importance of prioritizing family bonds and responsibilities. By neglecting his duty, Onan lost an opportunity to honor his family and contribute to its future. His story encourages modern families to reflect on how their choices affect not only themselves but also the generations that follow. Many cultures, both ancient and modern, have traditions that emphasize family honor and duty. Onan's refusal to fulfill his Levirate obligation reflects a broader human tendency to avoid difficult responsibilities, especially when they come at a personal cost. His story resonates across cultures as a warning against neglecting family obligations. It invites the viewer to consider how cultural expectations influence individual choices and the moral consequences of placing self-interest above collective good. The family of Judah, despite its trials, became an important lineage in the history of Israel. Through Tamar's boldness and Judah's eventual humility, this family upheld God's promise to continue the line. Their story illustrates the spiritual principle of redemption, showing that even flawed individuals can contribute to a greater legacy when they align with divine purpose. The spiritual lessons from Judah's family inspire us to trust in God's plans, understanding that divine purpose can unfold even through imperfect people and challenging circumstances. Thank you for staying with us till now. As you reflect on the journey of Onan and family duty, share your thoughts in the comments. If God killing Onan was the right decision, and let's support one another as a community of believers. And remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to hear about our next video on deepening your spiritual walk.